fair taxation and smart enforcement of the tax laws, because there's a lot of important things that America needs to do to get ahead. And Senator Casey has led the effort now for years on end to try to build a savings ethic in this country for young people. And I see all your heads, nodding, and we got the political spectrum kind of down there. If I had my way, what we'd have in this country, and I think we've got a chance to get started on it. I think we know that it's going to take a substantial amount of money, but if we cap some of these jumbo IRAs beyond the vision of Bill Roth and collect the money from the millionaires who aren't even filing returns, we could get started. And I'd personally like to see poor kids and poor families, when a child is born, go home with a little bit of a savings account, the kind of thing Senator Casey's been working for, to get them started. And it doesn't have to be some big government program. It can be some of the approaches Senator Casey's talking about. So I want to thank the senator for all his good work. And, they're all talking about whatever that retirement name was, Secure 2.0, and we're going to have Secure 3.0, Secure 12.0, and all that. And we may have good ideas for the future. Senator Casey's idea to help those kids with a small savings account. I want everybody to know, as long as I'm chairman of this committee, Senator Casey's idea is going to be at the top of the list, and I thank my colleague. Senator Whitehouse.
Thank you, Chairman, and thanks everybody for being here. I just want to flag for this committee that we had a hearing on this subject this week in the Senate Budget Committee, where we looked at the tax gap and learned first that the tax gap is known to undercount the actual tax gap because there are areas of omitted enforcement that it doesn't even look at. So it's a way bigger number than we think it is. The second thing that we developed in our testimony was that if you look at the top 10% of filers, the amount that the IRS obtains in revenue for a dollar spent in enforcement is $12. So it's a good deal more than we've been talking about looking across the board. And because President Biden has promised to focus enforcement on entities and individuals over $400,000 per year, we're starting to move closer to that 12-to-1 return on enforcement compared to what we've been talking about. Interestingly, it gets even worse the higher you go up the income level. When you get to the 0.1% of wealth, the return on the enforcement dollar can go as high as $35. $35 in revenue for every $1 in enforcement, which signals that there is massive tax dodging and tax cheating going on at the 0.1% number. So not only do Americans face a rigged tax code, they face the double whammy of rigged tax enforcement, even under that rigged tax code. So we have a lot of work to do. Two of the ideas I like, Mr. Pearl, billionaire Warren Buffett famously highlighted the rigging of the tax code by pointing out that he paid lower tax rates than his secretary. My Pay a Fair Share Act would codify what is called the Buffett Rule, with a minimum 30% tax rate on income over $1 million per year that phases into the $2 million, so there's not an abrupt cliff. Can you say, how would this legislation make our tax system fairer? And from your experience on the investment side, would it cripple the private equity system?
Well, yeah, first, I was honored to stand with the president, then President Obama, when he made that speech about the Buffett Rule. But yes, we think that needs to be fair. It's exactly the problems that Chairman Wyden was outlining about buy, borrow, die that results in Warren Buffett paying a far lower tax rate than his assistant does. And yeah,
does it cripple the private equity system?
And no, we don't have a shortage of people who are willing to become private equity fund managers. There are tons of people applying for those jobs. As I said in my testimony earlier, I think if we're going to try to use the tax system to incentivize people to join certain careers, I'm sure that you can find several careers that are more in need of people than private equity fund managers are.
Thank you. Ms. Wong, let me ask you a question about another piece of legislation of mine, the Medicare Social Security Fair Share Act. You were kind enough to come to the Budget Committee a little while ago and testify about that. That bill has a provision to support Social Security and Medicare by closing the so-called Gingrich-Edwards loophole that lets wealthy individuals avoid Medicare taxes. Would you mind walking the committee through how this loophole works and through how much revenue closing it might raise to support Medicare?
Yeah, so the loophole is that some wealthy filers can funnel their income through an S corporation. And if they do so and they underpay themselves salaries and put more of that return into business income, they can avoid both facing any of the Medicare taxes on payroll, on self-employment income, and on investment income. So they fall right into the gap. And some
the
of
money
that,
ends up in their pocket either way. It's just a question of which way you route the money that you control into your own pocket.
It's hundreds of billions of dollars are going through there, and some of it invites people to even overstep into evasion. Speaking of fund owners, some fund owners right now are in disputes with the IRS because the IRS says that they've gone over the line by trying to push so much of their income into this hole.
The last thing I'd mention, Mr. Chairman, is that the other part of the hearing was on the improvement in IRS performance as a result of our funding of the IRS, and that there has been massive improvement in how regular taxpayers are treated. And we had a wonderful statement by Senator Romney saying, you know, if I'm a regular taxpayer, I'm going to call up, and it's going to really matter to me to be able to get that phone answered in what is now a 3-minute wait time. And that is really important for the service of regular taxpayers. But he said, once I became very wealthy, I wasn't calling up that service line any longer. I have accountants and lawyers who intermediate, and for that, you really need to have proper audit and enforcement. So I want to commend Senator Romney's statement to this committee, and with that, I yield back.
Thank my colleague. It's been good to work with you on all